Healthy love often arrives quietly. It doesn't demand a scene. It doesn't explode into fireworks. It shows up at inconvenient times. It is steady in the little things, and it requires you to sit with ordinary moments rather than adrenaline. For many people, that idea feels suspicious, almost like a trick. If you grew up where warmth came in flashes, where affection had a cost, or where attention was conditional, your nervous system will greet reliability with the same wariness it saved for real threats. You won't feel relief. You will feel something like doubt. You will think, this is wrong, this is too easy, this can't be real. And that confusion is the center of the problem. Healthy love often feels wrong at first because your body remembers a different grammar of attachment. In childhood, we learn what love looks like long before we learn the word for it. If caregivers were unpredictable, if praise was rare, if attention was withheld until you performed, the scaffolding of your inner world was built on scarcity. You learned to calculate your value in terms of return on investment. How much do I need to give to receive X amount of care? That algorithm shapes the adult heart. When someone offers openness without condition, it contradicts everything your body expects. Your brain doesn't rush to label it good. It rushes to reconcile the mismatch. Safety is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe. The result is that the healthier the relationship, the stranger it feels. There is also a chemistry to pain. Relationships that wound often produce a push-pull loop that lights up the same reward circuits as gambling or substance use. Intermittent reinforcement, rare affection followed by withdrawal and then sudden restoration, is a form of patterning that hijacks dopamine. You don't fall in love with cruelty, you fall into a biochemical chase for relief. Those surges can masquerade as passion. They create a false narrative. Intensity equals truth. Healthy love, which gives steadiness instead of spikes, simply doesn't trigger the same rush. So your brain labels calm as dull, and the absence of drama as absence of depth. In truth, steadiness is the slow architecture of attachment. It's the kind of physiology that repairs rather than excites in the short term. Another layer is the belief that love must be earned. If your early relationships taught you that affection was conditional, you carry a script that says, love is the prize for good behavior. This script makes unconditional care suspicious. When a partner accepts you without negotiation, your internal editor starts inventing reasons for their generosity. They must not know the real me, you think. They'll leave when they see I'm flawed. The mind creates contingency where none exists, turning generosity into a potential trap. You begin to test them because your survival strategy was to prove yourself. That testing is not malicious in intent. It is a ritual born from lived experience. You are checking whether the pattern will repeat, and in doing so, you sabotage the one relationship that could correct the pattern. Fear of intimacy is another huge piece. Healthy love requires emotional availability, the willingness to be vulnerable and known. For someone whose vulnerability once led to punishment or neglect, exposure is risk. So when intimacy appears, the nervous system interprets it like prelude to harm and activates protective behaviors, stonewalling, withdrawal, anger, or a sudden collapse of desire. This reaction looks like indifference from the outside, but inside it is panic. The physiology is literal. Heart rate, breath, cortisol levels spike. The body thinks it is under threat. Love that asks you to breathe in, to stay, to allow, can register as suffocation. So you run, or you freeze, or you create friction to escape before the other person can. This self-preserving reflex paradoxically destroys the exact safety you wanted? There's also an identity cost to consider. Many people who survive unstable childhoods construct identities around being resilient, independent, unshakable. Those identities are adaptive. They helped you navigate a volatile world, but they also dislike being disproved. When someone soft and consistent arrives, you are asked to shed a layer of self that has proven effective. Who am I if I no longer have to be on guard? This existential question can feel like loss. Stability threatens the narrative of competence built on surviving chaos. So you unconsciously cling to situations that validate your self-concept, even when those situations chip away at your well-being. The cultural mythology around romance fuels the trouble as well. We lionize dramatic courtship and wild chemistry in books and films. We equate emotional turbulence with depth. This aesthetic primes us to find safety's subtlety boring. It gives words to our discomfort and frames it as failure of connection rather than an accurate nervous system response. If culture constantly tells you that love must be cinematic, then the quiet kindness of a stable partner will feel like a faulty reel, a slow, unsatisfying frame in a world that rewards spectacle. Practical consequences of these dynamics are predictable. People reject partners who are emotionally available because they are afraid of being trivialized by normalcy. They pick fights out of the blue to recreate the adrenaline of distress. They withhold their own vulnerability as if saving it for the day the other person proves worthy. They rationalize distance, reinterpret safety as stagnation, and weaponize uncertainty into meaning. Intimacy requires surrender, and surrender requires trust. Until trust is learned at the level of the body, the heart naturally defends itself. Understanding this pattern is not a moral indictment, it's a map. It explains why even intelligent, aware people can sabotage good relationships. It also shows the places work is most necessary: the nervous system, the internal narrative, the embodied habits accrued over decades. Repair is not a matter of willpower alone. You cannot simply decide to enjoy steadiness if your biochemical circuitry is primed for chaos. Repair requires gentle reconditioning and patient exposure to predictability. There are practical steps that help. The first is awareness without judgment. Recognize the pattern. Name it out loud. I tend to doubt consistent care because of my past. Naming cuts through automaticity. Second, cultivate small experiments in safety. Practice staying in a moment of calm rather than fleeing from it. When a partner texts consistently, sit with the feeling instead of inventing sabotage. When a partner offers support, accept it fully for 5 minutes. These micro practices retrain the body to tolerate steadiness. Third, slow down the narrative that equates intensity with value. Reflect on past relationships and chart the emotional economy. Where did drama serve you as a child, and how does it now distort adult choices? Therapy, specifically somatic or attachment-focused therapy, can be exceptionally helpful because it works on both mind and body. Another useful approach is to build parallel sources of safety. Relying solely on a romantic partner to teach you how to be loved back is asking too much of one person and too much of a new relationship. Invest in friendships, community, work that affirms competence, and rituals that create predictability: regular meals, consistent sleep, steady exercise. These anchors reduce the emotional intensity of partner interactions and make the reconditioning process more manageable. Boundaries are also critical. If a potential partner professes consistent care but you find yourself testing or withdrawing, be explicit with them about your history. You don't need to ask them to fix you, but you do need to explain the pattern so both of you can operate realistically. A good partner won't be offended by your honesty. They will meet the boundaries with patience and consistent response, and that consistency will be the medicine. Forgiveness, both of self and others, is a late-stage but powerful tool. You might look back and feel ashamed for how you behaved in relationships or resentful toward parents who modeled instability. Both feelings are human and valid. Forgiving doesn't mean condoning harm. It means loosening the hold that the past has on your present decisions. Forgiveness frees cognitive and emotional resources to choose differently now. There is an ethical and relational nuance to remember. Consistent love requires reciprocity. Stability is not a vacuum where only one person gives and the other passively receives. Real relationships grow through mutual presence. Being taught to accept care doesn't mean you become a passive recipient. It means you learn to receive and to give in kind. That reciprocity, then, strengthens attachment because it proves predictability from two directions. You learn not only that someone will stay, you learn that your staying matters too. The final and perhaps most difficult truth is patience with discomfort. Healing from attachment injuries is often long and messy. There will be regressions. You will test the patience of even the kindest partner. You will feel embarrassed, terrified, and sometimes absurdly small. But these are the contours of recovery. Small repeated acts of vulnerability that steadily expand the bandwidth of safety. Over time, calm will begin to feel like oxygen rather than a trap. The steady warmth will become what you measure as love. Ultimately, understanding why healthy love feels wrong at first is an invitation to kind curiosity. It asks you to treat your own instinctual recoils like messages rather than condemnations. It asks you to follow the logic of your childhood imprint into adulthood, to retrain the body through lived experience, and to choose practice over panic. The people who can hold you in ordinary moments are rare, not because they are flawless, but because they are consistent. Choosing them is not settling. It is learning a new grammar of belonging. When you learn that grammar, when your nervous system gradually stops mistaking steadiness for abandonment, you will no longer confuse the absence of drama with the absence of depth. You will understand that a love that asks you to rest is not a love that is small, but one that is big enough to let you grow. And when that day arrives, you will likely feel a strange gratitude toward your past wounds. They taught you what to notice, but you will not be imprisoned by those lessons anymore. You will be free to receive something better, not because you deserve it more now than before, but because you finally know how to let it in.